Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Get Your Mind Right. This is the world's only podcast devoted to merchant services and digital marketing professionals. With me today is Dawson Dimmett, who is the Sales Implementation Specialist at Evolv. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Dawson?
I'm wonderful today.
Well, I'm wonderful too because you're back with me. How many trips does this make for you to the show?
I think it's the second series we've done together, Boots on the Ground. So I can't remember if it's the fourth or fifth episode we've done together.
Oh, okay, great. Well, let me tell you why we're here. That would be a good thing for you to know, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, I saw you give a presentation a few weeks ago on being a successful sales rep, and your guy's been around a while, and you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I gleaned a lot of nuggets from your presentation on that. So I've got some questions queued up for you today, and some things for you to riff on that you talked about in the presentation. But before we go there, I'd like you to take us a little bit on your journey during merchant services, or through merchant services, I should say, and through Evolv, and how you got from point A to point B.
Absolutely. So I'd say it's one of the more unique trips of anybody in this building. Coming fresh out of college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had a finance degree and a minor in marketing, and I was like, I was looking at descriptions, I was looking for jobs, and I got to the point where I'd been through, all the normal stuff, looking on LinkedIn, stuff that had been pushed through, college stuff, where you're going to get hired through the career fair.
Well, it's slim pickings looking at those, isn't it?
It can be. Sometimes there's really great ones, but also a lot of people have seen it. So it got to the point where it's a funny story, to where I was just looking at successful businesses around like the general area that I had heard of before, right? And at the time it was Approval Payment Solutions.
Okay.
And so I looked it up. I remember I read it. There were 3 job descriptions, and I read it, and I was originally applied for the sales support specialist, which what I was originally, applied for it, and went through the interview process and eventually got it.
You started working here while you were still in college, right?
Yeah, I started here, I think I worked for 2 or 3 weeks before graduation, and then once I graduated, I went full time. So I mean, it was a real quick transition.
Okay.
It was great though, because it was kind of like I got a couple weeks of training under my belt before I went full time, and which was a great experience for me. So I kind of got the terms and stuff like that a little bit under my belt. It was one of those things where Alan actually told me, I still remember this in the interview, he said, you'll be knowledgeable in 6 months and you'll be efficient in a year. And my goal the entire time in that first year was to beat those time frames. And I felt like I was pretty close to him, maybe ahead just a little bit, but that's just naturally sometimes how long it takes, because there's so many ins and outs of like the different parts of the industry, understand your product, your pricing, understand how to work with the merchants, how to keep those merchants, how to keep them happy, and learning all those different aspects. It just, it happened really quick. Now looking back at it, it's been 4 years, and now I'm the sales implementation specialist. So now I, work with new reps that come on board with us and train them, most of which have been experienced in the industry, just teaching them how to use our system, how to work with our team, what they can lean on us for, and how we can make their life easier. That's really what I do on a daily basis now, and I love it.
Excellent. Yeah, I can see that. You've definitely had an impact here. I'm gonna go to my notes here, Dawson. There's some things you said, like you've developed your own philosophy and your fundamentals, and you talked about the 3 pillars of success with reps. A well-rounded knowledge base is number 1. 2, staying current, and 3 is lowering attrition. So, what do you think these are most overlooked by reps, and why?
Overlooked, probably lowering attrition. Now it depends on where you're at, like in your career in merchant though.
Yeah.
So like when you start out in the first like year to 2 years, you're not necessarily worried about attrition right away anyway, right?
Because they're all newer merchants.
They're newer merchants, and you're excited, you're learning all this information,
Yeah.
You're excited to be working with them, you're excited to figure out, I really helped this guy today, like I helped them lower their level 2, level 3 costs. You feel very knowledgeable about that, you feel good about it. And it's one of those things where I feel like over time, that's where the attrition starts to come into play. Kind of where, like, and I've been in the industry, like I said, for 4 years now. So kind of somewhere in that, like the average merchant account is around 6 to 7 years in the industry in general. So like I'm kind of in that point of like, you're looking at it and you're looking back like, okay, of those merchants, when I helped people set those up, what are things that could have been better? Which ones are we have more solutions now, we have better products now, there's better technology now. Which ones should I go back to, and should I play offense on and say, hey, just checking in with you, I know you're working on this, is there anything else we can do, because we have some new products, if that's something you're interested to talk about. double-edged sword to that is
Right.
you say, don't poke the bear, right? People have different philosophies on that. If you're pretty active with your merchants, check in every now and then, you know, they're happy, they're doing great, they keep processing, you're not going to have an issue with those.
Yeah.
The ones that have a lot of issues or have a lot of small things, those are the ones that sometimes just by contacting them, then they start shopping you. So there's kind of a double-edged sword there too that you have to play. But if you're decently, you know, active with the merchants and you check in with them every couple months, normally everything's smooth sailing.
I've heard a similar version of that from our bank partners. I got asked this question, you know, how do we do with check-ins with the customer? Again, I mean, that's a loaded question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I gave an answer similar to what you did, and I actually used the phrase double-edged sword. And my contact at the bank says, yeah, he says, I'm just interested on that. He says, because we have that same problem. He says, it seems like, you know, we go and we have good intentions and we want to follow up with our good bank customer, and then next thing you know, they're hitting us to lower their interest rates and was doing the fees on their accounts, and it's
Exactly.
like, okay, I'm in a worse place now than before I called you.
Yeah, and when you do contact them though, and you have a good, like based on the business type, know the things they're probably going to ask you, know how to fix those issues.
Yeah.
Right, so hopefully, and you're going to get a curveball every once in a while, but most of the time it starts to become wash, rinse, and repeat, to where you can just kind of answer those same questions and you're going to have, but we have better technology now than we did 4 years ago too, so we're going to be able to upgrade those merchants and fix those issues they may have, or their wants that they've dreamt up too.
I find out too that people that don't want to call these, because this is a real issue, right, this double-edged sword, but I think this can be mitigated by that you've got a real reason for your call, right? It's not a wellness check, because you read about them in the obituaries, otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise. But I'm calling you that like you mentioned earlier, I know your business type. Okay, well we've got a new way of doing something. Maybe it will save you money, right? Maybe it'll make you more efficient. Maybe it's a new product that we have that's going to drive your sales, you know. But if you got a reason for calling them other than the wellness check, you could drive them to a more positive outlook. Because otherwise, the customer, okay, I took this call from you, or I took this lunch from you, I could get something out of it. Well, I want to get my rates lowered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and sometimes looking at that, when you can use that with buyer's choice, and it's kind of like once you're on buyer's choice, they're very happy.
Yeah.
But it depends, like, okay, maybe I need a QuickBooks integration now for QuickBooks Online or something like that, or even turning that towards digital, saying, hey, look at that, what we've done in the last 6 months of the year or 2 years, how much you've saved, and you know all those card brand costs.
Mm-hmm.
What if you took that money and put it back towards digital stuff?
Right.
Get more people on your door, get more people on your website, and drive more business.
Well, I know this for a fact about you. You burn a large amount of calories and spend an appreciable portion of your life on staying current and making sure our reps stay current. So what's the good, the bad, and different about that from our rep standpoint? Is this a good calorie burn for you? Is any of this sticking?
Most of it, yes.
Yeah.
So, and it all depends on personality type too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some people just learn faster than others, and it's also your acceptance of it too. Some people are just comfortable, what I call a terminal guy in the industry. He just sells terminals, that's what he's always sold, and that's how he makes his living, right? And there's guys that have great books that have done this for 20, 25 years that have only sold terminals and might have 1 or 2 gateways in the mix, right? Just because that's what they know, they've stuck to it, they do it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in today's day and age, I highly recommend that you get into gateways and stuff like that and some of the QuickBooks integration just because it's so relevant right now, and accepting the new ones. But it's definitely one of those things that takes a lot of effort to stay current on everything because it all changes so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And a year from now it could be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
That you just have to have that mindset going into it that it's going to change, and lean on your support people around you to be able to help you with that.
Boy, I tell you what, obsolescence and atrophy every day, and gravity, it's working against you.
Absolutely.
And unless you're pushing against you, it's going to win. So you emphasize too also your proactive engagement with merchants. So what's that look like on a day-to-day basis? And if I'm a rep, how do I balance this with new prospect development and prospecting?
That's a loaded question too. So let's say external.
You can answer that in 6 or 7 parts if you'd like.
Yes, absolutely. So external rep is the easiest way to think about this, and that's a lot of people in the industry today are like that. There's a lot of guys have a book of business around them. So if you're in that town, some guys like the casual, just stop by, talk to them. Hey, how's it going? Make sure everything's good and check in on them, and maybe even try to upgrade them, right? And try to pitch them to upgrade to something else, and just check in on them. But also, people appreciate local service. I don't think many people complain that they actually see their credit card processing guy based on the nature of the industry in the last 20, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always been the case. Having a strong level of service, answering your phone also is an phenomenal thing to do too.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you can't fix their issue, they're going to appreciate that you picked up the phone and sent them in the right direction and say, hey, you need to talk to this guy or whatever. That's one thing that you have to do. So like external reps, a lot of people just do a casual drop-in. Also, some people may just follow up through email, especially for internal agents. An internal sales team is a lot tougher. Just depends on what your day-to-day looks like. But some people may just casually reach out to merchants that they're with, or if they know like, hey, this merchant's right now, it's getting closer to the middle of the year, may have fireworks merchants, right? And merchants like that, you should know, hey, I know that they also do that, or this guy owns multiple businesses, or it's a roadside stand that does vegetables and stuff. Not the biggest merchants in the world, but a lot of times those are tied to bigger businesses. So just casually reaching out to them sometimes and just staying in contact even before they contact you with something simple, just staying in some sort of contact with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. So let's go on. You had a section in on knowledge and continuous learning. And what you always exhort people to do is learn something new every day. First of all, where'd you get that notion anyway? That had to come from your grandma or something like that.
That one, no. I can't even remember where I got that one from. I'd worked here for like 6 months, and it was just constant, like every day. Something was new. And I wrote that on my whiteboard one day, and I put quotes around it. Like right in the middle of my to-do list, it said learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Quotes on it. And I had it up there for like a year and a half or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's still permanently etched into that dry erase board. But
where do you think that stemmed from?
I think it was just when I was working in sales, when I was the only sales support specialist at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just taking different calls. I'd be on the phone about swipe simple, and one day Evolv paid the neck, 1 minute, get off the phone after a 10-minute phone call with a rep. 30 seconds later, the phone rings. Now we're talking about a Clover point of sale. Get off the phone, and sometimes it might be another 30 to 60 seconds when it's just back to back to back. Now we're talking about a gateway solution, right? Or we're talking about buyer's choice. So I had to be on top of it at all times to be able to juggle all of these and hopefully get one call. They call me once, I give them one answer, and then hopefully that's what they need.
Yeah.
And it's not a total research project. In the beginning, that's all I was doing was trying to figure out, okay, let me make sure I give you the right answer. And learning all of that, retaining it, writing everything down, even if I didn't necessarily have to flip back to it later. It's just writing it down is the equivalent of, I believe it, what is it? When you write something down, it's the equivalent of reading it 7 times. I think it's the statistic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like writing things down, even if you don't have to go back and reread it, it's just
7 times.
In your mind, makes it stick better. So whether it's functionality of a terminal or gateway or like how something works between card and ACH.
So hold on, I got to quiz you on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So would typing it, does that have the same effect, or does the magic come from your hand?
I type things too. I feel like writing it is better
7
personally.
times.
But I'd have to look up the stat now that we bring this up.
Yeah, that's a good one. 7 times. I'm gonna make a note here. Retention. Writing. Yeah. Is that how you studied? You write.
A lot of times I'll write things down, but then I might reread it once or twice, and then I would remember it a lot faster. So versus just trying to type it or just read it. If something was like someone else had taken notes and like we had shared them, even on that, it's like I don't retain it near as well as being able to hear it and write it down and comprehend it.
Man, you're jarring all sorts of old memories loose today. My older sister, who was a much, much better student than me, right? That's I remember even from like junior high, she would be at a kitchen table and just writing furiously, not with a ballpoint pen, with a pencil. She pushed so hard, she was constantly breaking the tips off. But that's what she did over and over. She'd just write her notes. That's how she studied.
It works though.
So, that might explain why she has a degree in biology and I have a degree in business management.
Well, I come from, my older sister's a doctor, so similar stories.
Yeah. My small feet didn't fill those big shoes. Yeah, I know exactly what that's like. So that's a great thing, though. So do you still hold yourself accountable to that?
Yeah, and to learn something new, I will say it gets harder. And also a different role makes it harder too. I feel like a lot of what I did back then was all product based, right? I was very product based, it was functionality based, but that's what I was there for. That was the number one thing. And now I do more of like training the sales reps, so it's more of like being personable and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Being able to work with people and have those soft skills, because like in today's world, automation is key for a lot of things that we do. but there's some things that you still want to have a personal touch on, which is what I love about what I do now. And I talk to people, make sure they understand who they're working with, and if something happens or as their deal goes through the process, who they need to work with in that scenario, and also to have a very good contact if they have a question on it. You know, if something's like, hey, I feel like that's just not right. Yeah, that doesn't smell right to me either. Okay, let's talk to so and so, and they can get that figured out for you, and just to have that personal touch on it. So even like I said, I love automation. You know, utilizing AI is great for a lot of things, but there's some things that can't be replaced.
So talking about you building the Dawson Dimmett knowledge base, what has been crucial for you? What tools and resources have been crucial for you during your career at Evolv?
Crucial to me is probably going to be the reps that called me when I was working in sales support to ask me these questions, and the team around me that helped me find the answers. Because like there's some things I just never dreamt of that were going to happen. I dreamt of like, hey, that's how it's going to be laid out, or hey, that's how it's going to work, and just finding all these different weird scenarios, and then utilizing the team around me to be able to find those answers, or even once the team showed me where the answers were, of course, then I was going to go find them myself to figure out how this was going to work, and then try to merge those answers together and figure out what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, credited a lot to the reps that I worked with that were calling in. I mean, that's where it came from, because that's what was stemming me to ask extra questions.
Drinking from a fire hose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. So let's talk about optimizing merchant solutions. I know that is a subject that is near and dear to your heart. Walk me through the ways that, because I know you still get merchant situations.
Yeah, every day.
Thrown at you constantly, right? So walk me through your process.
So to look at it, it's actually funny you asked me this, because I ran a presentation this morning on it too, for a different thing. But looking at it, I like to figure out, okay, is it retailer, is it Modo?
Yeah.
So is it set up correctly? Are they on an appropriate solution for their business type? Is kind of the more general question I use. And then past that, are we going to do some sort of program such as buyer's choice, true cash discount, a surcharge? Is there some sort of fee program to eliminate their expenses? Yes or no? And on top of that, last question is going to be, level 2, level 3. Is that going to be an option? And side question to that's very underrated, what's their internet type, if it's going to be card present, because that's very important. That gets overlooked a lot these days, because everyone just assumes you have Wi-Fi or Ethernet. Don't forget to actually check which one they have. It takes 30 seconds to ask or look and see what it looks like, and from there, that's when you can figure out, okay, if they're on appropriate solution, okay, so it's card present, so it's on retail, and they need to be card present because people are across the counter from each other whenever they take the payment. Now, okay, I know, is it a terminal solution? Do I need a point of sale? And helping qualify it from there, as well as figuring out, is there something better that it can be on? Okay, yes, they're on a terminal today. Let's say maybe they're on a Deja Vu P1 already, which is a very up-to-date terminal. They're already on that, so is there something else that they can figure out? Are they utilizing a virtual terminal? So let's use an auto shop for an example, right? We talk about auto shops all the time. One of the most underutilized features in most small to medium-sized auto shops is to be able to send out an e-invoice, to be able to text it to you or email it to you, to pay for that, car repair, and then to be able to come pick it up as soon as that happens. So a lot of times the auto shop may be closed about the time I get off work or just after I get off work, and it's going to make the pickup process faster for me. If they can just text me a link, I can pay them real fast, and then bam, they don't have to worry about that. I can even tell them, hey, I won't be there until afterwards, just leave the key in my vehicle, I'll come pick it up. I already paid you for it, How many times a week do you think that same guy has to wait 15, 20, 30 minutes for somebody to come by to pay him to pick up their vehicle and go home? And that guy just missed out on 15, 20, 30 minutes of either, bookkeeping time or family time being at home. That's something that's very important, how I like to qualify that. On the other side of it, if it goes card not present, looking at gateways, a lot of great options that we have between our different gateways, between Optimize, Swipe Simple, Evolv Pay, Deja Vu. Those are really the biggest ones that we utilize today. And, figuring out which one's a better fit for them. If they need more functionality, so just go to this one, to that one. And that one kind of gets in the weeds a lot more based on business type. And is it level 2, level 3? Do they need a lot of, payment pages that are customized and in-depth, and they need multiple of them? Do they need ACH to go with that? Multiple different things they may need, and that's how we qualify a lot of those solutions that happen. And sometimes there's more than one right answer. Yeah. And I just say, you got to sell what you're comfortable with, right? I don't want you to sell a product that you're not comfortable with, because I encourage a lot, find 2 to 3 products, know them inside and out, that's your go-to-market plan. If you run into something outside of that you realize, hey, I need to go to a point of sale or something, call sales support, we can help you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest things I talk to everybody that's new in the industry. Know a couple of products inside and out. Have like a terminal with a gateway solution. Have a bigger gateway solution such as like Optimize, which you use for level 2, level 3.
Yeah.
And also outside of that, I like Invoice Path a lot. That's a lot more in-depth product. But if you master that one, it's a great product to have. So having just a handful, know them inside and out. If you need something outside of that for an integration or a point of sale, call us. We can talk you through it.
Yeah, that's great advice really for a newbie or even someone that's been around a while.
Exactly.
All right, I've got a hard one here for you.
Go ahead.
All right, so we've got a lot of pieces and parts that we have to marry sometimes for a solution. You've got network, we've got our processing, you've got multiple softwares and sometimes multiple hardwares. Okay, then you got this merchant over here, and they don't speak any of this language, yet you have to somehow convey to them why these pieces are important, but in terms they can understand. How do you bridge that gap?
I feel like that's really through what you call, actually it's one of your trainings that you taught me, FAB model, features, advantages, and benefits. So like, if you think about it, there's different people in the industry that are better.
I'm not sure I appreciate you throwing this background on.
No, this is good.
It's a good one?
This is a good
okay,
thing.
well I totally appreciate it.
Yeah,
You give me
compliments
credit.
you. I am giving you credit. That's where I got this. So your features are like, okay, it has the invoicing, it can do mobile payment, I can text you a link, right? Those are your features. The advantage is like it's going to speed it up, right? It's going to make it easier for you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you tell these to the merchant, they're kind of like, yeah, I don't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be on the benefits section. That's what's important is benefits. So you have to be able to take that and say, just let's go back to the auto shop. Hey, John, through your auto shop, I know it's great what you guys do here today. Been in business a long time. You're great at what you do. I feel like there's something that could help you out here. It's going to speed that up. We can have this terminal in place just like you do it today. No big deal. I also want to be able to add, it's only for a couple extra bucks a month to have this virtual terminal added on. And what it's going to do is I can text a customer a link, or you can email a customer a link. You could also just have a pay here button on your website, and they can go on there and pay if they need to. If that saved you 1 or 2 days a week from not having to stay an extra 30 minutes, would that be worth it to you for X amount of dollars?
Oh, yeah.
Right. For all of them vary in price, but for the small fee it is to add those virtual terminals, very few people will say no to that. So it's like trying to pitch, make it sense to you. I'm going to speed up your payment process. This is why. That's really the benefit to it is he gets to go home sooner to spend time with his family or spend time be able to do bookkeeping or whatever he needs to, inventory counts, and instead of waiting for someone to show up.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's real stuff. It's real stuff. I want to talk to you about product insights, Dawson.
Yep.
I know you're the guru on buyer's choice solutions, and that's still a super relevant topic. We spend lots and lots of times talking about that. So yet I still see regular resistance to sales reps out there to this solution. What would you say to those reps?
We have some those reps. Don't worry. And I've actually sat down and talked to them. The ones think about, and I've been here in the last couple of years. We had a lot of reps that would call us the guys that have been around for a long time, and were a very key part in building the Evolv's brand year over year.
Yeah.
But didn't really grasp the buyer's choice, part of it. And I feel like we sat down with a few of them, explained it to them. Hey, this is why it's important to you. This is why it's important to the merchant. And here's the most important part. If you're not pitching it to your merchant, there's 10 guys a day trying to pull that door to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mentality to have on it. So you don't have to believe in the product to be able to sell it. You just have to understand that if you don't sell it or offer it, you're going to lose that merchant.
That's a great way of saying it. That's like someone saying they don't believe in tornadoes.
Exactly.
Okay, you don't have to believe, but they're still going to kill you.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it though, and think about those reps that we work with that are like that, and they actually grasp towards that because they look down after it happens a time or two. They realize I need to do this, and there's some of them that told me they would never do it, and they called me 60 days later and said, hey, I need to get set up with, doing, buyer's choice. I have a merchant that'd be perfect for it. I actually need to put them on a gateway. And I was very happy that they called me back to make that happen too. We got it set up, and I talked to him about a week or two after we got it set up, and I said, that's kind of ironic, wasn't it? And he said, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to start talking to my merchants about it a lot.
Irony is thick.
Yeah, the guy come in
well,
there.
Well, things have changed in the last 60 days.
That's right. It's changed a lot. But what happened was there was a guy that came in, gave a very compelling pitch on utilizing dual pricing. Thankfully, the rep and the merchant communicated a lot, and it was one of those merchants he'd had for 10 years, right? He had serviced him very well. And it's just one of those things where he trusted his rep, called him back, and he got set up. Said, hey, do you offer this? He said, yes, I do. And we got to figure it out, you know. So that's one of the things. Just look down and just know if you don't pitch it, somebody else is calling on your merchant.
Yeah, there was an old Roadrunner cartoon to where the coyote does the thing where the Roadrunner charges off the cliff, but he doesn't fall.
Yeah.
And he raises the sign code. He says, "What about the law of gravity?" And Roadrunner says, "I never studied the law." Right? That's these people, you know.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just think about it in that aspect of, okay, this is my business, and especially in the 1099 world.
Yeah.
That's very important to them, you know, especially going back to the attrition rate, just keeping your attrition low.
So I know in the early days when we started going to a dual pricing model with B2B, we were getting quite a bit of resistance from that. Where do you see the state of that today?
It's a lot better than it used to be. So like B2B, as you know, is one of my favorite industry
Yeah.
types. Kind of, I know it's very generalized for like industry types, but like contractors, for example.
Right.
Plumbing contractors.
Card not present.
Yeah, card not present, or if it's a supply house of some sort, plumbing supply, electrical supply, any of those types of merchants, phenomenal for that. And that higher average ticket, and that's where it generally stems like, I don't know how I feel about that. ACH is the number one answer to that. Having the option to have a card versus ACH price, that's what really helped us out. And there's a lot less pressure, and it turns out that a lot of people still don't care, and they're still going to pay with a card. And of course, price your ACH accounts accordingly to make sure you're still making good money as an agent too. You have to remember that. Don't be selling it for, you know, pennies on the dollar, you know, whenever it should be priced at a certain price. And it just depends on the merchant too, of what's appropriate for them.
Okay, so let's talk about merchant retention and risk here. So you talk about merchant education. That is a key factor to lowering and mitigating attrition here. So what are some mistakes you see reps make, either by commission or omission, that actually hurts their attrition?
Yeah, so the number one thing that is a mistake that I see is they don't inform the merchant the next steps. So let's say we sign paperwork today.
Yeah.
And I say, yep, we'll get this sent in. You're going to get your terminal and you'll be ready to go, right? You have no idea what you're in for. Right? You don't know who to contact. You don't know if something happens, if I have a question, or can you get a hold of me? Do I need to call customer service? Do I call the processor directly? Is there a different support team for this terminal? You don't know these things, right? Like, and thankfully we have our numbers on the side of the terminal so they can call into our office. This is how long it takes to make that happen. Is you say, thank you for getting this put in, and I'll get this put in today. You should have an approval through underwriting here in just, you know, probably a day or two based on your business type. I'd expect it to give you an auto approval, but I want to give you a conservative number that's realistic. You know, once that happens, our team here in the office, they're going to program your terminal for your business. They're going to test it before they ship it out, make sure everything's good to go. They'll ship it out to you. Once they ship it out to you, I can help you schedule that install with them, and I can walk you through how to use it. It's very easy.
Okay, so you're saying this is the old ounce of prevention here. Do it right on the front end. You're not going to have these problems.
Exactly. Tell them the process. Let them know who to call and say, don't forget, you can contact me at any time. A lot of times I'm on the road, but I will answer the phone. And I'll give you a call back if you have any questions. And if I can't answer your question, I'm going to give you the contact of who can answer your question. Make sure that happens for you.
Let's talk about every sales rep's favorite issue, risk holds.
Oh boy.
Okay. Everybody loves that topic, right? So what can your reps do to mitigate this or lessen the blow when this happens to their merchant?
Well, that goes back to a little bit of merchant education too. Depending on merchant type, as if you should give them that as a post-approval step, right? So if it's like quick service restaurant, or let's say it's a little ice cream place, right? And they're selling, average ticket might be $8 to $14, right? Something like that.
$2,000 ticket comes through.
Exactly. The catering bill, right? That's going to be an issue for them because they weren't set up for that. And their high ticket may have been set at $500 or $1,000 in that instance. So like knowing that, let's say it's more of a, you know, one of those supply houses we're talking about for contractors, building houses or whatnot.
Yeah. Those
are ones they're going to run into more issues with, right? Because you're going to have, you know, cost of supplies and everything else is going up. I mean, that sky's the limit for a lot of those. What you should know is, hey, we're going to set your high ticket at, let's say, $15,000. We're going to set your high ticket at 15 based on what you processed before. And that's how we came up with that number. And if you have anything outside of that, let us know. Call us 2 to 4 days ahead of time, and we're going to submit and send us an invoice, and we'll get that over to the risk team, and it's going to be able to help prevent a risk hold. Now, most merchants in your scenario have seen this happen before, and that merchant may have had that same issue, right? They may have been in a risk hold before, but what they don't know is how to resolve that, right? How to work and prevent that from happening. Now, even before that, what you don't have to pitch to the merchant is if you're writing this on, depending on which processor, some of them have what's called a cover sheet. So on the cover sheet, it's really an additional piece of information. You specify the high ticket and why it's high, and of course, for those types of merchants, you're going to send in processing statements, financials, or bank statements, right? Could be the third one that you send in to verify that. You have to verify those volumes, but if they're going outside of that, that's when they work with the risk team, and they want to send that over ahead of time. If they don't do that, or somehow risk still puts it in a risk hold, then you would work with Consi on our risk team. So that's who you're going to work with. You have one contact, and she just is a communicator between the rep and the merchant and the processor's risk team. So that way they don't have to contact or be in contact with them directly. She's basically just playing middleman back and forth with everybody.
Well, I think everybody gets it on the contractor, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking deposits or you're doing let's just say you pour patios and they're $15,000 jobs. I think everybody gets it that if you turn in a $50,000 ticket, that's going to get flagged. Now, I just heard about this last week. There was a restaurant and it was not a massive ticket. It's like maybe $3,000, $3,500 for catering job, but risk flagged it and the funds got held, okay?
Yeah.
And of course everyone's pulling the fire alarms when this happens, okay? So walk me through what could have been done to maybe prevent that whole debacle from going down.
So if you think about it, let's go all the way back to the beginning, right? When you write the merchant account.
Yeah.
Restaurant, you always want to ask, and it doesn't happen on very many, but there's some of them you just know they do catering. If it's local to you, you probably know if they do catering or not. So you want to ask, hey, do you guys ever do any catering with that high ticket? If they say yes, you're going to want to have a good conversation about if we need an additional mid or not. To figure out, okay, do you do one catering event a year? Or are you doing, a couple events a month?
Yeah.
There's a big difference in those two. Now, if they're doing multiple catering events a month, you're going to want to set them up with the second mid. So you have your regular mid, which is going to have just your regular transactions at the restaurant. And all your high tickets, probably going to be e-invoices, are going to go through the catering mid. And that's going to help differentiate your risk and split them.
Okay.
So if for some reason...
So if they're doing any volume whatsoever, you're going to put them on two mids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depending on what it is. Now, if it's like one a year, I'm probably just going to tell them to send an invoice in the risk and say, hey, I did a catering job.
What's the break even on that, you think, for you?
It just depends on how often they do it. I'm going to say if they're doing
once a week?
More than once a month, probably.
Okay.
It depends on the volume, too.
Okay.
If it's very, very minimal volume, but what's the average catering job, too?
I mean, this one I saw, I think it literally was maybe like a $3,200 ticket. It got held up.
Man, that's tough. They're doing like one of those a month. I want to say try to do it through the other one, but it's all depends on how risk perceives that too. If you keep getting put into risk holds, put it on a second mid. That's the time you're gonna have to upgrade to a second mid and rewrite it or write the second.
Right, the second mid. Well, I just know myself working from restaurateurs. I mean, these guys, they're all over the map, right?
Yeah.
They're wearing a lot of hats, and like if you ask them what the average ticket is, he's gonna tell me, or his high ticket, he's gonna say, oh, I don't know, occasionally people come in, go crazy, order a few bottles of wine, $500, and he's not even thinking about these catering jobs.
Yeah.
Right? Because I did not ask that specific question.
Yeah, it's just something to look at and be like, hey, if you ever do catering, because that is very true. If you ask them what's your highest, ticket you've ever taken, they're just thinking about in the restaurant. They're not thinking about catering because that's so different to them than just the regular day to day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, back to your question though, as far as like what the break even is, I'm thinking if they're doing 5,000 to 10,000 in catering a month, I think it definitely needs to be on a second mid. But it all depends on how risk is perceiving that too. If they get a couple of issues pretty early, I'd say as a rep, you need to actively say, hey, we need to set you up on a second merchant ID that's specific to restaurant catering. So that way your regular funds keep coming in every day. Because if the funds don't come in, the merchants are not happy, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Not happy whatsoever.
Way not happy.
Especially in the restaurant space, you need the cash flow to keep
Absolutely.
that place going.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I learned something new today, Dawson. Maybe you should start texting me about 10:30 at night. Hold me accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. What'd you learn today?
What'd you learn today?
You need to put it on your calendar just every day. Write it down in your diary.
All right. So this could be a grind, right? We got a lot of mouths to feed. We got merchants who need solutions. They need help. They've got demanding customers. What keeps you motivated and energized? I notice you. I'm just thinking. I'm contemplating. I'm answering my own question. I don't know that I've ever seen you in a bad mood.
Oh, it's happened before. Don't worry.
You're just you're just less peppy. Is that your form of a bad mood?
Normally, yeah, just
Okay.
not as energetic.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So like what
Okay.
energizes me on it, I love finding new solutions that solve issues to what we have, right?
Mhm.
I don't want to duplicate it. We have a big product suite, we don't need to duplicate anything else.
Right.
We have a lot of them that overlap with a few key differences. Now when we brought all these on, they were way different and then added a bunch of features to where like a lot of these overlap now. But I love finding new products that solve issues for us or issues we didn't know we had necessarily or kind of rare, and it turns out they weren't as rare as we thought. So that energizes me a lot. I also love working with the new groups that work with us that have the same mentality as us. They want to grow, they want to win, they want to utilize new software and pitch that to people to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Instead of just being, hey, I sell, VX520s, they want to be way ahead of the curve on that. Because of course you can't sell this anymore, get a new file built. But they want to sell the newest equipment, and they push us constantly for software and other stuff like that. As far as, hey, you need to look at this, need to look at that. That energizes me a lot. And sometimes it's even draining so much to where like trying to look at all of that all the time is draining to look at. But it would be really boring if we didn't, right?
Yeah.
Because we'd just be doing the same old thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So I honestly think it's the change in the industry.
Okay.
Constant change.
Okay. So what's your piece of advice you give to a rep that's struggling to get traction in their territory? Like we've got EU going on right now. We've got a few newbies in there.
It depends on the territory in general. So like a lot of reps that we work with excel in the industry, they excel well in smaller towns, right? Because a lot of the ones in bigger towns in the big cities, they've all been on the race to zero. They're all on Interchange Plus. A lot of people don't want to switch to Buyer's Choice because there's 3 more people within one block, right? They sell the same thing. So a lot of them don't want to make that jump, and there's very little margin there. And they get called on all day, every day, because there's a higher population. So like a lot of people do better that we work with just outside of the bigger cities, right? Those satellite cities to the big city. So like looking at that, you have to figure out what you're good at, which takes a little bit to figure that out, right? So if you look at the reps that we work with, like Tyler with Woodsman, right? He has a niche. And we have a lot of people that work really well with our bank partners. They're utilizing our bank partner referrals, and everybody's in the same pitch. The bank partners know what to say, and they're teeing up our reps for success.
Yeah.
So let's say you're out just cold calling, though. If you're cold calling, understand your niche. Once again, are you local to them? Is that important to them? Now, where I've come from a small town too, just outside Evansville. That's important to the people in the town I work with. I've lived there large majority of my life, and that's important to them. They work with somebody local. So if that's something that's important to you, it's probably important to them. And just focusing on those couple of products, right? Figure out what's going to work for them and know, hey, I'm going in an auto shop. I'm probably going to pitch a terminal solution that has a gateway option on it, whether that's Swipe Simple, Ball Pay, or Deja Vu. Pick your poison there, whichever one's your favorite, and run with it. Just know what's going to work for them and be confident about whatever that solution is to be able to talk to them. And other than that, wash, rinse, repeat. Do it over and over and over again. It's a game of sales, right? And you're going to get told no a lot. And then once you start getting those merchants and you have them on Buyer's Choice, the other merchants in your area can use them as a reference if they're on the fence about it. And that's one of the big things I've seen people say, hey, well, and that was really bigger like when I first started was, well, it's different in my town. And name your small town USA, right?
No, it's not. It's the same.
It's not. It's the same. But once you have a few around town, that's a reference. That's a reference. And now people are really used to it. And a lot of guys will even say now, yeah, I've been wondering how to figure out how to do that program. Can you help me on that? Yeah, our terminal will help you do the math for you, right? Where we can put in the price and it'll differentiate it for you.
Yeah. In a compliant fashion.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always amazing to me too. You made a lot of great points in that, by the way. But like one of them I really gravitated towards was, you've got all Interchange Plus merchants, or you've got a hodgepodge, right? And I'll have a rep that'll tell me, they'll say, I was selling Buyer's Choice in X market, and it's really easy because every other merchant was already on it. So where I had the concept proofed out. And well, how many of those merchants were yours? None, but it's the same concept, right? So then I'll have another rep, same situation, different market, right? And they'll say, well, I can't, it's half Buyer's Choice and it's half Interchange Plus, and everybody's happy where they are. Okay, so same situation, one rep's being very successful, other one's not. So, clearly their pitch, their approach, something is way, way off.
Exactly. It's the implementation of the program. Is this a big lift for me? How are my customers going to react?
Yeah.
You know, those are really the two biggest things. Is how do I make this change, and how do I make sure that I don't get a bunch of slack from people that are like, hey, you know, what do you mean you have two different prices? What do you mean you have a card price and a cash price? You know, it's one of those things where if you know how to handle that objection, which what the stats on that, like what it's less than 1%.
Right, less than 1%.
They're going to notice it right up
Are
front.
going to notice it. Yeah.
And it's
and you learn those objections at day 3 of Evolv University.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So yeah, it just you know, those reps. I always it's amazing to me because we've got like a lot of really great reps and they're willing to share.
Yeah.
Right? They'll tell you, you know, you throw a scenario at them. Well, you know, and like Shelly Hooper, I mean, she runs into a unique deal literally every day, and she's happy to tell you how she handled it, and obviously she knows how to close deals, right?
Yeah, and she's done this for a long time and still proceeds to find new ones every day.
Find new ones every day, right? So yeah, I think people should do a better job of tracking that work. Well, Dawson, I'm gonna give you the last word here. This has been really great, and you know, as you look down the road here, what trends do you see shaping the future in merchant services? You know, what do you see coming that maybe is not appearing right now? And if I'm a rep, how should I be preparing for that?
I feel like the biggest change right now is like, where is it going? So obviously it's service based. Like sales in general is becoming a lot more service based. So if you answer the phone, number one, that's the number one answer to everything. Answer the phone, even if you can't answer it, send them the right direction.
Always check box A.
Absolutely. So that's one of the biggest things. Fly by night's not a big thing anymore. It's very rare to see that in the industry right now. So the other ones that are big are really going to be like, what's the next step? Now, of course, buyer choice is very successful. I think it's going to stay for a long time. But I feel like the next step is like small referral partners too. Now, big referral partners with your big banks are awesome, right? We love our big banks that we work with on that. But I feel like a lot of guys, let's say you're just a 1099 guy working for yourself out there in the industry, a small referral partner will make you more money than anything else. Some guy that you just know, maybe he's a bookkeeper, or maybe it's somebody who, you know, works at the hardware store that can help reference you out, help out guys that are contractors or anything like that. Someone who's going to get you in that space to use as a referral partner. A lot of those guys can help you out more than any of the other referral partners out there. There's some people chasing ISVs, chasing software, and I think that's great too, but I feel like sometimes that's harder, right? You're going to have to go through a longer process to get them up and going. You might have to go through a certification process. Now, once they're in it, they're way more committed. Just finding those small ones, you know, around town and guys that you know can help. Well, even if you set them up as like, hey, you've sent me 4, 5, 6 people. Let's talk about you being a full-time referral partner for them. You know, just teaching them how easy it is to say, hey, you just tell them what I do for you and show them how that's going to work for them. And then make a warm introduction. That's all we have to do. And I feel like that's one of the big things is where it's trending towards is that level of service. I'm helping service this guy. I trust him. He's local to me. He's in our market. He pops by, you know, he talks to me every Saturday when he comes in here to the hardware store. You know, I see this guy.
I've got a trusted partner.
Exactly. And that's one of the big things that I'm starting to see. Now, is every referral partner you talk to going to work out? No, just the nature of the business, right? But if you find a couple in there, let's say if you're picking up, you know, 3, 4, 5, you know, per partner per month, let's say maybe on the low end, that's 3 that they run into. In the first couple months, of course, it'll drop off over time. Let's say you're picking up 3 to 5 deals a month off of that. How many of those would you take? You know, and basically an intro that says, hey, I want to do the program that he's got. Just set me up like him. I like that.
How hard is that?
It's not hard at all. He's got to fill out paperwork from there done in about 15 minutes.
Well, Dawson, I appreciate you coming on the show.
No problem.
If you're agreeable, I'll have you back.
Absolutely. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. For Dawson Dimmett, I'm John Johnson, and until next time, keep your mind right.